It's November 4th, 2022, about 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm Todd Dunn. Now let's take a look at the water out here. It's a beautiful day out on the water. A nice breeze, flat water, perfect conditions. So naturally, I'm on my way over to my 1972 Allied Princess 36 Seaquestor to spend some quality time aboard. Well, I'm aboard Seaquestor now. It's quite nice to be here sitting at the helm. Steer the boat a little if I want. The only issue is, wasn't thinking, even though it's perfect weather out on the water today, the boat is in the shed. So let's talk about some of the things I think I'm going to be doing this winter. Some things I know I'm going to be doing, and some other things I think I'm going to be doing. One thing I know I'm going to be doing is redoing the varnish here in the cockpit. As you can see, it's pretty rough. So I will sand this down, as well as the handrails there on the cabin top, and put a couple of coats of Epiphanes gloss varnish on it. Another thing I'm going to do is, you'll notice right here around the control for my Anderson ST40 electric winch that I've got a little bit of water intrusion under the varnish. So what I'm going to do is take this control switch off, scrape the varnish off there back to bare wood, and this fall I'm going to start building that up, and in November I'm going to try and get about 6 coats of varnish on there, so that in the spring it will be ready to put a finish coat on. Not that there's any such thing as a finish coat of varnish on a boat. And I have a similar issue over here on the other side. This is starboard side. Again, around that switch, I've got a little water intrusion under the varnish. It's lifting the varnish, which is what causes that discoloration. So we'll scrape that off and build up 6 new coats. Of course, I will feather the boundary between bare wood, where I scraped the varnish off, and existing varnish, so that hopefully the repair will completely disappear. And that's basically what I'm going to do with the varnish. Not much. Let's go forward and have a look at a few other things. As we walk up here, I am going to repaint this area here on the cabin top around the mast step. Last year in the spring, just before launch, I had a hole there that I filled with epoxy and fiberglass, and then just put some fairing compound on. I intended to put some paint on it this summer, but I just never got to it. And I spent my time sailing rather than doing maintenance. So this little area here is going to get repainted. Going forward, up here, on the deck just forward of the cabin house, I got an area a couple square feet where I think I have some delamination. The deck here is balsa cord, so I think there's a little bit of delamination between the upper skin and the balsa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that up and see if one, the balsa is sound. If the balsa is dry in there, I'll just inject some epoxy in, load it up with some weight, and we'll glue it back down. If the balsa isn't dry, I suspect it isn't. I suspect we got some leakage in around that stanchion base into the balsa. And I will then take out any bad balsa wood, replace it with a foam core. It's 1/2-inch balsa core, so I'll put 1/2-inch foam core in, and then re-glass the area that I repair. The only issue with that is that the non-skid on the deck here is molded in. And if I cut through the deck to remove a piece of the top skin, that's going to leave lines along the cut where there won't be any molded non-skid. So what I'll probably end up doing if I do that is sanding out the side decks, the foredeck, to get rid of the molded in non-skid, which will be just a couple of glorious hours, maybe about 6 or 8 glorious hours with the random orbital sander and some 40 grit paper to get rid of the non-skid pattern. Then we'll sand it all smooth, put a couple coats of white paint on, and then redo the blue color with blue paint with non-skid grit in it. So we'll switch from a molded in non-skid to a painted on non-skid pattern. And I don't think I have any significant delamination on a cabin top, so I probably won't do that there. The only tricky part is going to be blending the paint that I use to match the color on the cabin top. But we'll end up with new non-skid on the side decks and the foredeck, and no more delaminated spots in the deck. That's a fairly big project, but it needs to be done someday, and I figured I might as well get to it now. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do up here on deck. I don't think there's anything much else that I'm going to do. Oh, I forgot one thing, and that is that I think I'm going to pull this chain plate right here and that chain plate there. This is the chain plate for the mainmast cap shroud, starboard side, and that's the chain plate for the mainmast aft lower shroud. And I think I'm going to pull those. I last pulled them about 15 years ago, and they were in pretty good shape then, so I just cleaned them up and put them back in. At that time, 15 years ago, I did replace the other 4 chain plates for this mast. So I'm thinking that maybe I'm about due to replace these 2. They are kind of hard to get to. Inside, I have to partially dismantle a cabinet to get to them, but that'll be a bit of a project. And so that's something that I want to try to do this year. I am going to do some work on the mast. And what I hope to do on the mast is I'm going to take off the aft lower shrouds on the mainmast and take them home, measure them up, and order new shrouds and new turnbuckles. I've been sort of gradually replacing the standing rigging on the mainmast over the last couple of years, and I'm down to just the lower shrouds on that mast. So after this year, I'll only have the forward lowers to do, and I'm spreading it out just because it gets a little expensive. The turnbuckles are about $120 to $130 each, and the shrouds are on a little over $100 a piece. So, you know, if I do the aft lowers on both sides, that's symmetrical, everything will be fine, and I'll only spend about $500 this year, and then next year I'll do the forward lowers and spend about another $500. And when that's done, we will have all new standing rigging on the main. I may also replace the jib halyard. It's a little bit old, and just have to get around to it. Buy myself 90 feet or so of 3/8 line and rig it up and put it on the boat. So those are the main things that I think I'm going to do on the outside of the boat this year. There are some things I'm going to probably do inside the boat. So let's go below and take a look at some things down there. Okay, down below now. So what am I planning to do? Well, the biggest job here is I'm planning to replace part of this cherry and white maple cabin sole, basically from where my toe is outboard and up underneath the chart table there, and just take out what's in there because it's become delaminated from the substrate over on the outer edge, and there's a little rot up against this bulkhead where condensation has run down the inside of the hull, because this is all below the waterline, and damaged the cherry. So I'm going to rip that out and build new. That's a pretty simple job. Takes a little while, and I want to get started this fall so that I can start varnishing it, because my wife is not real fond of varnish inside the boat, the smell of it. Now up forward, I did rebuild the cabin sole in the V-berth last year. This is what it would look like. And I'll just do that again back aft. It's not a hard job. It just takes a little time. Another thing I'm thinking I'm going to do is take that makeshift door into the anchor locker off. It's actually just a piece of Luan plywood that I screwed up over the opening many years ago, and I have just never gotten around to building a proper door. So this winter, I think I may get some teak and build a proper door for that. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking I'm going to do on the boat this year. It's not much. The only really big project is the deck. If I do open the deck up, you know, that's a big project, and it will take some time, and you know, it's going to be kind of unpleasant. It'll involve stripping off the old upper skin of the deck. I have to do it in small increments because I don't want to weaken the deck that much, because obviously I'll have to be up there to work on it, and put down new core and then glass over that, and gradually rebuild as much as the deck as needs to be rebuilt. And you know, that's not a particularly technically difficult project, but it will be both time consuming and messy, because it'll involve lots of grinding fiberglass and lots and lots and lots of sanding to get a good finish on the new deck upper surface. One thing I might do up there is initially just drill a few test holes in a few spots where I can repair the damage to the non-skid and see if we're dealing with simple delamination or if there is rot in the balsa. And in the latter case, I will have to open the deck up completely. If it's just simple delamination, I can just drill a few holes, inject epoxy down, weight it down, and let the epoxy kick and re-laminate it. Anyway, find out in a few weeks. Now that we know what my projects for this year are likely to include, I may not get all of those things done, but I probably get a good start on them. I thought I'd show you a little bit about my neighbors this year. To starboard of Seaquestor, we have a Bristol Channel Cutter 28. And this boat is not the boat that has been beside Seaquestor for the last 10 years or so. That has always been Tortuga, but since I sold Tortuga, it isn't going to be here anymore. So this is a boat, the yard says this is owned by a local fellow, so we will hopefully meet up at some point and be able to chat while we're working on our boats. And maybe I can even get a tour of his Bristol Channel Cutter. Now I'm somewhat familiar with these boats because back when I was in my model building days, I built oh gosh, maybe 7 or 8 detailed half models of Bristol channel cutters. So I'm very familiar with the specifications and the you know, on deck details of the boats. I've have files and files and files of measurements and pictures, but I've never actually been on board one of these boats. So it'll be interesting once I meet this fellow to see about maybe going aboard his boat and having a look at it. These are very highly thought of boats. The only issue is in the forward cabin, which can be accessed by this scuttle or by sort of crawling through a very short passageway between the aft cabin and the forward cabin. There is a berth up there, but it's not much headroom. Okay, what else have we got here? Well, this is Seaquester's port neighbor. It's an outboard powered powerboat. I forget the brand name. These are boats that have just been introduced in North America in the last few years. And this is 37-footer. And it's built in Poland. And they're actually, you know, if you like this style of boat, and they are quite unusual in style, they, you know, are a nice boat. It has a forward cabin, it has a little aft cabin, and it has a fairly nice main cabin. And with the outboards and the fact that it's quite shoal draft, these things move right along. Let's see, does it say what the brand is back here? Well, I see the name over there. It's an Axopar. So, and it's quite a fancy little boat, and with the two 300 horsepower Mercuries, it probably has a good deal of get up and go. So those are my neighbors here in the shed for 2022. Well, those are my plans for the 22-23 winter, you know, boat work aboard my 1972 Allied Princess Seaquestor, and I'm probably going to get started at that fairly soon. Basically, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be working on the boat on the not so nice days out, and you know, trying to get out into Acadia National Park on the nice days. So, hope you enjoyed this quick look at Seaquestor in the boat shed on November 4, 2022. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and maybe even think about subscribing to my channel so that you can see some exciting videos about boat work aboard my 1972 Allied Princess. Thanks for watching.